practical level, and one is on a machshava level, as the Sefer Torah Devorah explains. But first on a practical level. Most people lose patience with other people on a very, very basic level because things are not going their way. The person says, I have my schedule, I have my agenda. I need to get X, Y, Z things done in a certain time. I want to get to a certain place by a certain time. I want things done in a certain way. All those sentences are beginning with the word I. Person has his agenda, person has his program, person has his plan. And when the world around him puts up stumbling blocks, impedes him from his plan, delays his plan, he gets impatient. I have to get somewhere. I'm stuck in a traffic jam. I'm honking away. I have an appointment. I got to get there. I want things done a certain way. The key word in all these sentences is I want, I planned, I need. Another, humility, the root of humility is a mistaken assumption. Many people think that another humility is a topic of Vinodam Lachaver, how we relate to other people, whether we look down at them with arrogance or not. The root of another is Vinodam Lachaver. The root of another, explains in Zil Sishon, is the recognition that everything comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And everything we have, including our kaichus, our wisdom, our gashmias, material assets, and primarily life itself, our time, is all from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Meshech Chochmah says in Parashat Shmos that the Moshe Rabbeinu was Onav Mikol Adam, was a siman, was a sign of his intense Dveikus on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He never forgot that there was HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world, so he never got wrapped up in himself. Another means humility comes from the understanding and the constant understanding that everything one has is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not from himself. And Moshe Rabbeinu's darga of anova, Moshe Rabbeinu's level of humility, was a result of his intense, constant connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and not forgetting for a minute that there is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything is from him. So there's nothing to be a Malgaiv about. That's the essence of anova. So what Rashi is teaching us is, on a very basic level, is that somebody who's humble, that's a sign that the person understands that the agenda is not his agenda, and the time is not his time. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Rebbeinu Shalom, gave him the time. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu also gave the traffic jam. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu also gave the spouse who's delaying you. And it could be either one. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you your children who are imperfect. Another means that I don't have my own agenda. My agenda was given to me, was granted to me. And the root of impatience is I need to get somewhere. Because I decided that this is what needs to be done. Another attributes everything to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you the time and he gave you what to do with it. I'll give a very simple mashal, a very simple metaphor. On two levels. On a very basic level, if a person's in a traffic jam, he gets stuck and he looks at his watch and he says, I'm late for my meeting or my chavrusa, and he starts to honk, and then he realizes that there's a 6-car crash, and it's a pile-up, and it's going to take 2 hours to clear out. So he stops honking. Why? Because he realizes it's not in his hands. It's out of his control. And the minute that it's out of his control, and it's out of his hands, and he's not the manager of the crime scene, everybody calms down. They take their hands off, they take their feet off the gas, and they stop honking. The understanding that humility, it's like take a step back. You're not in charge of the program, automatically causes a calming down. I'll give another very simple mashal that we all experienced. When the recent crisis of the coronavirus broke out in the first few days, in the first few weeks, all of us were impatient to get back to regular lives, to our regular schedules. Impatient. What's going on over here? What's going to be? I think all of us, the minute we realize that this is an international pandemic, and this is something way bigger than anything we ever realized, we all realize that it's not in our control as if we thought it was before that, and we all let go. Everybody took their feet off the gas and stopped honking. It in a very deep reason. The reason is because everybody understood. Everybody understood that it's not in their control. And the minute we all got a little bit of humility, at the beginning of this crisis, we all acquired some anova. We're not such big shots. We're not in control. Anova means that everything comes from Hashem. We also got patience. Interesting. That's on a very basic level, the connection between anova and savlamus. When we accept that it's not under control, we calm down. We lose our impatience. The same person who was honking vociferously a minute ago quieted down, and he took out his mishnayos and he started to learn. On a very basic level, that's the connection between anova and savlamus. But there's a much deeper connection, a much higher connection, and perhaps much more important for our long-term growth. The Sefer Talmud Devorah, when he speaks about the midos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he speaks about the midah of Mikel Kamecha. He says an incredible thing. He says, at the beginning of the Sefer, a person we know has to be, compare himself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mahu rachum, afata rachum, mahu rachum. A person has to go in the path of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A person came into the world to make himself godly and compare himself to the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as much as possible. The Talmud Devorah, when he speaks about the first midah, he says an incredible thing, and I'll translate it. At the beginning of the Sefer, he says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us life every second. I'll read just a few words here. Ein rega, there's no moment in time. There's no second that a person, nothing sustained by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by God Almighty. There's no second like that. Varei, he says almost something cynical. Timtza comes out. There's no person who ever did a chet. There's no person who ever did a misdeed. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu at that second wasn't giving life to that person and the ability to do that avera. That's an incredible need of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives life to us and provides us with the ability to be imperfect. He provides us with the ability to rebel against Him. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu accepts that. He's safe of that. It's a need of HaKadosh Baruch Hu who gives life, accepts our imperfections, and He's the one, the Rabbi who is providing the sustenance for that imperfections, which is being used against Him. Ends off the Talmud Devorah and says, and we say, Mi kel kamoicha, ata kel bal chesed hametiv. Haloi, you can delete us in 1 second when we misuse the life you give us. The imkol zeh. And with all that, we say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ata soivel, you carry us, you're patient with us. Ad yosha b'tshuva. The greatest level of patience is the patience that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has, that He waits for us to be placed at tshuva. That's the ultimate level of savlamus. Says the Talmud Devorah, Harezu midah shetzarach ha'adam l'snaig bo. This is the midah that a person should acquire, savlamus. Be patient. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is patient with us on the ultimate level. He gives us life, and not only does He give us the sustenance while we use that life for all our imperfections, He waits patiently until we improve ourselves. He understands that we have a battle. He understands that it takes time. And the Rabbi Shalom gives us a life and waits patiently for us to fix ourselves. Torah Devorah says, be godly. Pick up that need of accepting other people's imperfections around you and have patience until they improve themselves, the same way the Rabbi Shalom accepts our imperfections and patiently waits for us to improve. So that's a much deeper connection in our understanding of the connection of anova, humility, to savlamus. Anova means that we remember, we live with the cognizance of every moment that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us life. And when we remember that Kosh Baruch Hu gives us life, because if that's the ultimate truth of Anova, that's the real source of humility. When we remember that Kosh Baruch Hu gives us life, we also remember that He gives us life and gives us the ability to do whatever we want. And the giving of His life that He gives to us is an act of patience. It's an act of savlonos, because included in that giving of life to us is the patience that comes and is willing to absorb. Savo means to carry. To wait patiently for us to improve. To wait patiently to improve our imperfections until we come into tshuva. And it doesn't immediately delete and extinguish the life which we use ourselves for the wrong things. So, an anav, someone who lives with that cognizance and that constant knowledge that Kosh Baruch Hu gives him life, so he's certainly going to be patient with others. Because the anav who lives with this cognizance that Kosh Baruch Hu gives us life, and despite that, and because of that, he has the patience to wait for us to improve ourselves, to look the other way at our imperfections. So when we live with that awareness of that need of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that Anova triggers. Anova has to trigger, because the person who's humble lives with the constant knowledge. He lives with the constant knowledge that there's HaKadosh Baruch Hu who's giving him life at that moment. That's what Anova means. If a person lives with that knowledge, then he will be patient with others. Because the Rabbi Shalom who gave